job, right? I got fired from my job. And they're asking for last pay stubs. Because when you get closer to closing, they want to make sure you still have the jobs that you had when you first applied. My last pay stub was from the first 2 weeks of June, and this was the middle of July. Hey y'all, Dr. Jazz here, and I am a Purpose Cultivator and Educator, and simply that means I help people find and pursue purpose, and I do that in a myriad of ways, but you can find me on my podcast that should be coming back out next week. There's been a lot going on with season 3, which is the Purpose Podcast with Dr. Jazz. I own a business called Prosper Projects, and that's where I help people pursue purpose. So if you want to find out more about any of that, go to JasmineWisePhD.com. And that has something to do with why I'm here. Why am I here? I just purchased a home. When I say just, I mean maybe 2 weeks ago. And before I purchased a home, I felt like the Lord told me I had to do a testimony video. So here we are, me doing a testimony video. And I just want to be clear in that the miracles of God, you're not gonna believe the whole time, right? I actually called my god brother, well, I call him my god brother, but my big brother, and he's not my official god brother. And I was like, what is faith? And we had like a 2-hour-long conversation about what, maybe it was 2 hours, like about what faith is. And one of the things he said to me in that conversation is, the lack of faith is walking away. It's not doubting, because we're human. Right? We can doubt what the Lord said, but as long as we don't walk away from what he said. And I ain't gonna lie, there was at least one time, maybe 2, maybe 3, one time that I remember that I was like, yeah, God, it's okay. I'm gonna get me an apartment and I'm gonna move on. But I feel like the Lord just kept saying, well, we'll get to that when we get there. So anyway, this video is gonna be kind of long because I feel like also I'm supposed to be detail oriented, because when it comes to the miracles of God, every moment is not gonna look like this glorious moment of this is gonna happen for me. But this truly is a miracle. So I wrote a whole bunch of notes, and sit back and relax, get some popcorn, pause the video, do what you gotta do, because we're gonna be here longer than 10 minutes, I think. And I normally don't do anything longer than 10 minutes. But anyway, here we are. So how do we get here? How do we get to me even wanting to buy a house, or how do we even get in this situation? So I'm originally from Monroe, Louisiana, and I've moved around a lot for various jobs and things like that. And I was last in Atlanta, and I felt like, I've always wanted to come back to Louisiana. Now, our plans and God plans are totally different, right? What does the Bible say? A man plans and within his heart, and the Lord makes his way straight, or something like that. Anyway, it's in the Bible somewhere about our plans and how God got them. So I thought I was gonna make millions of dollars in Atlanta and then come back to Louisiana, retire on my farm, and live happily ever after. Well, that's not what God had for me. So back last year, maybe this time, my mother did a presentation at the university that I currently work at, and she met the head of the department, and they kind of had a conversation. My mom was always shopping me around for a job. It is what it is. And they had a conversation. He basically was like, oh, we need her to be here to be a program director. So I immediately reached out to him, because I've always wanted to be a professor. And a professor in Louisiana, again, even though I didn't want to necessarily move back to Louisiana this soon, why not do it? So I emailed him, we had some back and forth, and then he fell off the face of the earth. And then he reaches back out to me maybe August, September, somewhere late in the semester of last year, last fall 2022. And he was like, are you still interested? And I realized there's a background story to that. Basically, the person that I was replacing decides to stay for a whole nother semester and retire in January, which makes sense. So I went through the interview process. I met some of the staff. I did all that stuff, and I got hired. And I remember distinctly that I got hired late November, early December, because I didn't have much turnaround time to figure out how I was going to move. So immediately when I got the job, not immediately, but a couple weeks later, I really feel like the Lord was like, you need to buy a house. So if you know me, you know when I hear something from the Lord, most times if it doesn't scare me, I immediately move on it. So I immediately called a loan officer and I expressed to her what was going on. I didn't send her my paperwork. I think I did send her my paperwork. And she looked at it and immediately was no. That lady was like, absolutely not. And to give you context, I do own a home in Atlanta still. I was not making a lot of money. I'm still not making a lot of money. I'm making about the same amount that I made in Atlanta, to be honest. So the math wasn't mathing, right? Immediately she was like, absolutely not. But that didn't deter me because I've heard no before, right? Buying my first house, I've heard no before. So that didn't deter me. I heard this prophetess, her name is Tiffany Montgomery. She's the one who went viral about her Beyonce comment. She said a long time ago that if I hear a word from the Lord and I hear no, I'm talking to the wrong person. And I've adopted that. When I hear things that don't align with what God said, I'm talking to the wrong person. So it didn't bother me at all that she said no. I moved on. I called another loan officer and it wasn't immediate no. They actually, entertained me for a little while and then they was like, nah. So that's 2 loan officers that have told me no at this point. So I am in a process of trying to figure out how I'm gonna move to Atlanta, where I'm gonna land. Move to Monroe, move to Louisiana, where I'm gonna land. So I call my parents and I kind of tell them the situation. They're like, yeah, come on. So for context, where I'm from and where I work are 2 hours apart. So for a couple of weeks, I was driving from my parents' home to work back and forth. But we'll get to that later. Okay, so I get to Monroe with clothes. I leave everything in Atlanta except clothes. And for a couple months, from December to April, I lived in 3 cities. I lived in Monroe, Louisiana, the city where I work, in Atlanta. I went back and forth between the 3 for 4 months. It was a crazy ride. But anyway, back to the story. So 2 loan officers have already told me no. So I called a 3rd loan officer and he was so kind to me. He was like, honestly, I don't know. So what I'm gonna do is just send your stuff to the underwriter and see what they say. And they sent it to the underwriter and they told me that I needed to file my taxes. Let me pause. They told me I need to file my taxes. Pause. So I get home in December and the Lord told me to buy a house. So I'm on Zillow, I'm looking at houses. I contact a realtor. Me and my dad go down to the city that I work in and we look for houses. So I meet this nice realtor. She's wonderful. We look at houses. I realize I don't really like none of them. I think I liked one. And we move on from there. Because of course I didn't have pre-approval at that time. All right, back to this. So I found a lender that was like, yeah, just file your taxes. So this is about January. When I tell you, filing my taxes has never been so daunting in my entire life. So I hired a company to do my taxes and they did them wrong no less than 3 times. It was not until April 15th that I got my taxes done. And this whole time I'm talking to this lender and she's trying to figure out ways while we wait on my taxes, she's trying to figure out ways to make it work. Are you going to use a conventional loan? Are you going to use an FHA loan? Are you going to use all types of things? So I really do feel like you need to know these details. I don't know why, but I'm going to share it with you. So because I own a home in Atlanta, to use an FHA loan, I would have to sell that house. And I know that's not what God has for me. God has said specific things to me about my life, and selling that home in Atlanta was not a part of that plan. So I knew that wasn't gonna work. And she said, okay, we can go conventional. And this is why I had to file my taxes. I had to show proof that I'm renting my home in Atlanta, right? So that's where we are with that. So she was like, okay, we're probably gonna go conventional. Here's what we need to do. This is how you need to do it. Whoop to whoop to whoop. All right, cool. But again, this isn't until April 15th that I get my tax, like they did them the day taxes were due, right? So the realtor, she's so nice. She checks in on me, and I'm like, girl, I don't have no financing. I'm waiting on my taxes. Whoop de whoop de woo. This is going bad. This is going south. And she's like, don't worry about it. Like, it's gonna be okay. Like, we're gonna figure it out. Well, I honestly forgot about her. I'm not gonna lie. I can't lie to you. I literally forgot about her. I think in the stress of trying to figure out how I was gonna move my stuff from Atlanta to Louisiana and all this stuff, I forgot about her. So I meet someone on campus, and they were like, I was telling them like I was trying to buy a house, and they were like, oh, use my realtor. She does the financing and she's a realtor. And I was like, oh, great. So I contact her, scam. Let me not say that. Let me pause. She is not a scammer. She is not a scammer. She does not do her due diligence. All right. So I work with her, and this is literally the week before I go to Atlanta. Literally the week before I go to Atlanta, because I still have a job in Atlanta that I need to do, and I promised them that I would be there all summer to do it. Okay. So the week before I go to Atlanta, I'm looking at houses with this new realtor, right? And so while I'm in Atlanta, so I look at houses, I kind of find a house that I like. Now I'm back in Atlanta. So I call I'm texting the girl who we're both looking for a house at the same time a couple weeks later, and she's like, girl, I dropped her. I went with this person. So she sent him my information, and he works for the same company my original realtor that showed me houses in December worked for. So they can't steal customers from each other. So she called me, she was like, Jasmine, what's going on? I was like, honestly, I just want you to know this was not on purpose. Like, I was not skipping over you or anything like that. Like, I really just forgot. Okay, cool. Oh wait, let me pause. So there was a house that I really, really liked, and I told the second realtor. So let's call them, let me give them names. So the first realtor that I met in December, her name is Caitlin, okay? So Caitlin, in December, me and my dad went to go look at houses. The second realtor that I called a scam originally, that I had to backtrack, we're gonna name her Rebecca. So with Rebecca, I found a house that I wanted to put a offer on. So I'm like, yes, I'm so excited about this house, all these different things, and it just slipped through our fingers. And I was like, girl, what's going on? Because I'm under the impression, because I've sent her my paperwork for her to do my pre-approval and things like that. I'm under the impression that I have a pre-approval, and I do not. I have a pre-qualification, right? Which is not the same thing. Who knew? Not me. Now I know. Okay, a pre-qualification is where they just look at your stuff and they say, okay, you might be able to do this. A pre-approval is when they look at your stuff, send it to an underwriter, and an underwriter says, okay, you're pre-approved to do these things. I ain't have that. So I'm upset that I'm missing this house, and the house slips through my fingers. But here's the thing about God, you never miss what's for you. It might look like you miss what's for you, but you never miss what's for you. Okay, so this house slips through my fingers with Rebecca. And then fast forward, I talk back to Caitlin, right? And Caitlin's like, girl, let me help you. She was like, and she literally says to me, I could have helped you get that house, right? And so the whole time she's calling me, checking on me, and I'm telling her about my taxes, she's telling me to use this lender that I ended up using. But the way she was pitching it to me, I ain't gonna lie, it felt a little, I don't know, I ain't like it. So I was like, no thank you. But I ended up closing with him anyway. So, all right, where was I in the story? So in December, I look at houses. January, I'm told to wait on my taxes. Here we are. Okay, so now I'm back in Atlanta, right? I'm back in Atlanta, and I talk back to Caitlin, and I apologize to her, because honestly, I'm not a malicious person. I just wasn't thinking, right? I was not thinking. So I apologize to her, and I'm like, anyway. So I apologize to her, and then we start back looking for houses. So we decide not to buy in the market that I live in, that I work in. I actually bought a house about 45 minutes away. And that's only because the market in which I work in, the houses are, in my opinion, the houses are overpriced because of just the cultural demographics of that area. And I was like, I can't see myself buying a home there. So my parents literally go look at 3 houses for me in the city that I'm currently in. And of course, this is one of the houses. I love it. I'm like, let's get it together. So she's like, okay, you need to talk to this person. We're gonna call him Devin. You need to talk to Devin, and you need to get all your finances together. Because the person who was waiting on my taxes, she still couldn't do it. So that's not true. She could do it, but she couldn't do it for an amount that made sense in this market, right? Like, it is what it is. Interest rates are stupid high. Houses are marked up $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 more than they were before. It is what it is. So she could get me approved. She was like, I think I can finagle it. If we do these type of things, I can get you to this number. And it just wasn't working out. So I went with Devin, and my realtor Caitlin is thinking we good. We got the pre-approved, we moving on. Baby, we were not. We were not. Okay, so this is where we are. So I'm back in Atlanta, right? And my parents are looking at houses for me. I kind of convinced them, like, don't you want me out your house? Which they have never complained. Like, they're okay with me living there. But so they go look at houses for me. And in Atlanta, I got fired. At this point in my life, I had 3 jobs, and I got fired from one. I actually walked into that meeting, and I said, you about to fire me, huh? Like, I don't know if it was when I woke up that morning or on the way to work. I don't know what it was. I just knew I was getting fired. So I get fired in the middle of buying a home process where they check everything, where they dot every I and cross every T and all these things. I get fired. So a certain amount of money, I got fired now. $30,000 a year, this was a part-time job. $30,000 a year are now no longer existing. But the Lord told me to buy a house. So I have to be confident in that. I have to say to myself, me getting fired is not gonna stop me from getting this job. And the way house buying works is you have to be at a job for 2 years for it to count. I just started my job in January. So the 2 jobs they counted were that job and my other job. And I got fired. But I got a house. But I got fired. All right, so I got fired. That's a whole nother story for another day, okay? That's a whole nother story for another day. So I'm talking to Devin about my loan, not telling him or Caitlin that I got fired. No one knows that has to do with this house that I got fired. No one knows, right? Because why would I tell them that? That's absolutely insane. And I know that that's not like God has something for me. So I talked to Devin. He's like, Jasmine, you're gonna need a co-signer. Like, I've done everything. You're gonna need a co-signer. So of course, my first thing I'm gonna ask my parents. Whatever. Yeah, they said no. They were like, no, ma'am, we've already done that for you. They co-signed on my home in Atlanta. I get it. It is what it is. So I am under the pretense that if the Lord gives me a word, I have to do everything in my ability, right? Not trying to make the word happen, but I can't quit. So when I say I asked everybody to co-sign, I asked everybody. Well, not everybody. Everybody I knew that made a certain amount of money. And one of them was like, that's kind of crazy that you even asked me. And I said, why? Because I would do it for my friends. If I made a certain amount of money and my friends need me to co-sign for a house for them, that might seem dumb to you, but I trust my friends. And if it's not gonna hurt anything I got going on, I would do it. So anyway, any of my friends out there, I got you. Well, not now because I ain't got no money. But when I get rich, I got you. I do have money in the name of Jesus. I apologize. But anyway, so I'm asking everybody, y'all. I'm asking my auntie. She was like, she originally said yes, then she realized she got some stuff to do in her own family. Understandable. I asked my grandma to convince my family. That didn't work out. I'm asking friends. Like when I say I asked everybody, I asked everybody. And everybody said no. And then we get to the end and my realtor, we put in an offer on this house, it gets accepted. And let me tell you about the offer on this house. This house was originally on the market for I'm trying to do the math so I can tell you how much. $44,000 more than I paid for it. So the original market price was $44,000 than I paid for it. The price that they had, she talked to the selling realtor, and she was like, we're gonna reduce the price. So wait till we reduce the price and then put in, well, not wait till we reduce the price, but we're gonna reduce the price and put in the offer. This house has been under contract twice. So we put in an offer for an amount that's less than the price that they asked for. And they came back and said they want the price they asked for. Understandable. But here's the thing about that. The price that the asking price was the price the Lord gave me in November when he told me to buy a house. He told me how much to spend on my house. And the house that I loved, the original house that I lost out on, was actually cheaper than that. And I was like, oh, I know the Lord said this, but I can get this house for cheaper. That's not what the Lord said. So on the way to your miracle, make sure you keep what the Lord said in the forefront of your life, right? Because that's not what the Lord said. It was $10,000 cheaper than how much I paid for this house. And I'm thinking I'm doing the Lord a favor, right? Like, God, I got you. You know, that's $10,000 less dollars you got to help me with, right? No. So when they came back with that price, I kind of chuckled and I was like, okay, let's just go with it, because the Lord had already told me, right? He was whispering this number in my ear for months. So when it came back that, cool. Okay, so the house is under contract. We're doing good. Meanwhile, I still don't have a pre-approval. Let me be clear. I still do not have a pre-approval. Like, my loan agent is like, Jasmine, you have to get somebody to co-sign with you, because, girl, we're getting close. We're like 4, 5, 6 weeks away from closing. Maybe 4 or 5 weeks from closing, right? So there's a closing date on my contract. And okay, so my realtor calls me one day and she's like, Jasmine, I didn't know that you didn't have a pre-approval. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, girl, it's gonna work out. You know, like both of them, her, Caitlin, and Devin are thinking I'm absolutely insane. Because the whole time I'm like, it's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. And Devin even tells me the story. He was like, I went home and told my wife that I knew it was gonna work for you because of how confident you were, right? Like, he was like, I don't know how it was gonna work, but I knew it was gonna work out for you. Because every time he would call me, I'd be like, I hear you and I got you, but it's gonna work out, right? So she calls me one day in a panic, because she's like, hey, the seller is asking for certain information, and because you haven't gotten a pre-approval yet, I can't give it to her, you know? And I'm like, girl, calm down. Just ask her, can I have a couple more days? And she was like, you don't have a couple more days, which actually I did. The things that the seller was asking for, turns out were not things that were contingent on my pre-approval, but it is what it is. So we do all that. I finally asked my dad again. I asked him again. I'm like, Dad, like, come on, please help me. Help me, Dad. So he says yes. So he helps me out, and we get his information to the lender, and eventually I think like the next week, I think Monday, I think she called me on a Thursday, got my information to them on a Friday. I know exactly when it was because it was the end of the month, and apparently everybody closes at the end of the month, whatever. So this was 4 weeks before my closing then. So we got our stuff to them on a Friday, and I got my pre-approval letter on Monday. All right, cool. So I'm not pre-approved till 4 weeks before I'm supposed to close, which is crazy. Let me go back to my notes to make sure I'm not skipping anything. Oh, in June, before my daddy says yes, I went to a coffee shop, and me and God have business meetings, right? Like literally we sit down and we kind of plan out things. We have business meetings. And I'm in the middle of this business meeting. I'm like, God, it's all right. Like, I done asked everybody I know to ask. It is what it is. I'll get an apartment. And the Lord said to me clear as day. He said, Jasmine, I'm providing for you a house, not an apartment. If you get an apartment, that's cool, but you own your own. I'm with you at a house. And you know, I don't want to be by myself. I don't want to be by myself, because that means if something happens, the Lord is like, you did this, right? Now if something happens in this home, I can say to God, you did this, right? And that was a turning point for me because I never want to be, which we are, right? We're human. We get out of the will of God, you know, unintentionally, intentionally. I'm not saying that, but I don't want to intentionally be out of the will of God. When he said that to me, I said, well, I guess I'm getting the house. So I got back on that train. And then my dad says, yes, here we are. Okay, cool. So it's all smooth sailing. They're asking for different paperwork. Remember, I got fired from my job, right? I got fired from my job. And they're asking for last pay stubs. Because when you get closer to closing, you know, they want to make sure you still have the jobs that you had when you first applied. My last pay stub was from the first 2 weeks of June, and this was the middle of July. Because my last day of work was May 31st, so I got, you know, paid. I turned it in. But luckily, let me tell you how God works. I was teaching summer school. And because I was teaching summer school, I got a paycheck in the middle of the month from my Louisiana job. And I don't get paid. So my other job is teaching as well. In Atlanta, I teach online. And I don't get paid from that job in the summer because I don't teach in the summer. So I go down to 2 incomes and they're asking for pay stubs from all places. They're asking, like, my job in Atlanta questions. And I don't work there. And thank God we did not have, I don't believe, like I'm big on integrity. Like, I will be quiet before I lie to you, right? If you ask me a question and I don't want to tell you, I'm just gonna kind of look at you and be like, I will not lie to you, especially on something like this. When the Lord is giving it to me, I know that he wants me to work in integrity, right? So we turned in all the information from that job. That was not a lie. It just, you know, questions they was asking, like, does she work remote? I mean, did she get permission to work remote? Yes, I did get permission to work remote. It is what it is. Anyway, so we didn't lie. I said I would say we didn't lie. But so they asked for my last pay stubs, and luckily, because I'm teaching summer school, I got a paycheck in the middle of the month from that school. So it looked like I had more money, right? Because God is God. So we turned in all this stuff, and I'm like, Lord, please don't let the people realize that pay stub is from June. Because again, I'm getting paid every 2 weeks from this job, right? Up until this point. It didn't come back with anything. Okay, cool. So we're getting close to close day. I get my initial disclosure. My initial disclosure closing costs are about $3,000 more than what I have. I cannot make this stuff up. It's like $3,000 more than what I had. So I asked my dad, oh, Dad, you know, I need $3,000 more. And he was like, no. Which again, I'm not telling you these things for you to think that my parents are bad people. Trust me, I am well taken care of by my family. But I'm also a 33-year-old woman who has been in the working world for a long time. So let's, okay. So he was like, no. And I said, well, God, and I moved on, because if he says no, like, it is what it is, right? So the initial disclosure papers tell me I need a certain amount of money to close, which is $3,000 more than I currently have. So I just go into these bank accounts that I got, and I'm like, I can take a little bit from here, I can take a little bit from there. It'll get me as close as I possibly can. All right, so I'm still panicking a little bit, but not really, because I'm like, I still ain't got enough, but I did a little moving and shaking. You know how you get from your savings and your all that kind of stuff, right? I did a little moving and shaking. So, but it still ain't enough according to that paper. All right, so then they ask for that. They're like, we need proof of your down payment money. So I send them my account, and they like, girl, we need more proof of your down payment because that ain't it. So I say, hey, Dad, I don't need money. I just need an account with a whole bunch of money so they can say that I got enough money for closing. So he agrees to show paperwork that says, okay, I have enough money for closing. Y'all, this is crazy. So so my closing was supposed to be on a Monday, and I had to push it back to a Tuesday because I booked a vacation Did not do it on purpose, did not realize it was the same day. So on the Friday, it was Friday to Monday. So things have calmed down. On that Friday, I get an email that they need additional paperwork. I'm on an airplane. Literally, I'm on an airplane. And it was one of my dad's accounts. And I'm calling my dad and I'm like, hey dad, like they need this paperwork. Can you please figure out a way to go to the bank and get them to scan it and email it or whatever. And I hate stressing my parents out. So if they asked something of me and I was the one running around, I wouldn't care. But the fact that my dad had to run around really like bothered me. Even to the point where we got to the resort, like my friends were like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm not okay. Like I will be okay once this gets settled, but I was not okay because I hate bombarding other people with my burdens. And this felt like my burden, right? So he figured out how to do it. He gets the paperwork to the people and they were like, we really need to do this like now, right? Because again, I'm supposed to close on Tuesday, right? And they don't have everything they need. And I'm gonna pause the story right here to say, my friend just closed on her house as well. And she told me, she was like, you need to ask the Lord, what will you need to make your closing smooth? Because they had a rough closing as well because of the underwriting. And when I tell you the Lord told me this document, the Lord told me this is the document that I need to get. And I asked my dad for him. Like I did. Like I was like, hey dad, I'm gonna need copies of this, blah, blah, blah. And my dad was like, I ain't giving people all my information. Again, I'm not knocking my father because I literally would not be in this home without him. I'm just telling you the story. So he's like, I'm not giving people my information. All right, cool. So I'm looking at God like, he told me I needed it. I asked for it. He told me no. So this is literally the paperwork that God told me months before. I think I was in Atlanta. I was in Atlanta when I asked the Lord this, and this is okay. So it's like May when the Lord told me that. So finally, we do get the paperwork in. I don't hear anything. But I knew in my spirit that I was closing on Tuesday because God wouldn't let me get this far for the deal to fall through. Meanwhile, I'm still $3,000 short on the down payment, and I'm on vacation. I just knew it was happening, okay? So I'm on vacation with my friends. We all been through, life has been rough for all of us. So we chilled. We went to the pool, they went to the spa, I got in the jacuzzi. Like, this was not a vacation full of adventure. It was a vacation full of sleep and sitting by the pool. So we're doing all that and we're chilling. Monday, I fly back to Dallas. My closing is in Louisiana. This is important to this story. I fly back to Dallas. And I told my mom was in Dallas. So we had a conversation where I was gonna take her car home Monday so that I can drive with my dad Tuesday to closing, right? Okay. So I get in her car and I have a car wreck on the way to Monroe, Louisiana. So I'm freaking out more so because it's not my car than my clothing. So I think once the car situation kind of settled, then I was like, oh shoot, my clothing. So I immediately call my mom, I immediately call my dad, I tell him what's going on. My dad's like, okay, I'm gonna come get you. So I get a tow truck to take me off the side of the highway. And I wasn't the only one who was in this car wreck. There was something in the road and I was the first person to hit it. So my mother's car got it the worst, but there were 4 other cars that hit it. So the first and the last car got it the worst. The other 3 cars just drove off, like the bumper was messed up and they drove off. Freak accident, right? Obviously the enemy, obviously trying to deter me, obviously, whatever. So my dad comes to get me. I'm still in Texas, by the way. I'm close to Louisiana, but I'm definitely still in Texas, okay? So my dad comes and get me and I'm like, Dad, we're not driving, we're not doing that. So I get us a hotel room, we spend the night, both in the same clothes that we're in. I'm gonna try to figure out how to put the picture of my clothing. The outfit that I have on is the outfit that I flew in a plane with. Don't judge me. Okay, if I can put that picture somewhere. So we're exhausted, right? We are exhausted. I've been on the side of the road for hours because my mom's insurance was tripping, all this type of stuff. I finally get a tow truck that told me somewhere safe, the car's safe, I'm safe, we're good. My dad comes to get me, we spend the night in the hotel. Tuesday morning, I woke up and the Lord said, do you trust me? You're going to close today. And I was like, yeah. Mind you, I still think I'm $3,000 short at this point, right? In my brain, I'm still $3,000 short of my money to close. So I get my final closing documents Monday, but I didn't have, I had no internet access to look at them. So Tuesday morning, I wake up, my dad's already gone downstairs to breakfast. I come downstairs to breakfast. I have my laptop, I open it up. Let me tell you about God. My final closing disclosure was less money than I had in my bank account, because that's who God is. Okay, so originally I'm $3,000 off in my hand, and it ends up being $4,000 less than I thought, because that's who God is. So it works out, right? So this is Tuesday morning. This is like 7 a.m. Tuesday morning. My closing's at 1. Okay. So me and my dad, he's like, all right, let me go get a U-Haul trailer and we'll hook it up to put your mom's car on it, blah, blah, blah. So I'm looking up U-Haul places. We get a U-Haul. And at the U-Haul place, the Lord kept saying to me, Jasmine, do you trust me? You're gonna get to your clothing on time. And I'm so glad he said that, because that U-Haul lady, I don't know if she know how to work a computer or what. I had already, none of that mattered. We was in that U-Haul thing for about an hour. And me and my dad was just looking at each other like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So we, anyway, so we get the trailer, we drive to my mom's car, we put her car on it, and we drive straight to the city that I now live in. Straight there. Because what else are we gonna do? And I'm freaking out because I haven't gotten a check for my money. I wasn't freaking out, but I was like, what am I gonna do, right? I ain't got the check for my money. So I kind of researched and I called a couple banks because my check was in a credit union. At credit unions, there are co-op banks, but I don't know if I can get a check for that amount of money, right? From a co-op unit, they have different rules. So I'm calling around on the way and I'm like, hey, I'm a part of a co-op bank. Can I get this amount? Blah, blah, blah. One of them told me no. No, she didn't. She said, I don't remember what she said, but we went with the other one. Okay, she didn't say no. But I went to the one that was easy. This is an hour before my closing. Because remember, I'm still in Texas. I had my wreck in Texas. My dad is driving his truck, pulling my mom's car all the way to the city that I now live in. And we have to go to the bank and get a cashier's check. Okay. So we get the cashier's check and I'm supposed to do the final walkthrough of my home. And I forgot to say, I've never seen this home. I did not step foot into this home or see it with my own 2 eyes until 30 minutes before I signed the papers to say it was mine. And here I am, right? And that's a whole nother story. My dad came down to do the final walkthrough and they didn't have the key, right? The owners took the key or something like that, and there was no way for them to get in. And I just told you, it breaks my heart when I inconvenience my parents. I hate doing that. So he drove an hour and a half to this city and could not get in the house. So we had to turn around and drive back, a week before I closed. Anyway, so 30 minutes before I close, I come out, do a walkthrough in the house. It is exactly what I want. It's, what God provided, it is what it is. At 1 p.m., I closed on this home and I drove immediately back to Monroe. That is the story of how I got to this home. So we drove immediately back to Monroe because, again, my mom's car is being pulled by my dad's truck, right? So we drive immediately back to Monroe, and I just thank God for his faithfulness. There are plenty of times during this story where I could have turned back. I could have turned back when the first lender told me no. I could have turned back when the second lender told me no. I could have turned back when the third lender told me it wasn't enough money. I could have turned back when Rebecca, the realtor I ended up not going with, told me what she told me. Like, there were plenty of times for me to turn back. But in order to feel the miracles of God, you have to be confident in what he said. I know the Lord told me to buy a house. So if I know the Lord told me to buy a house, I have to do that thing. 2, you have to do everything in your power. I'm asking people to co-sign. I'm trying to figure out what jobs I can get to make some side jobs to make more money for my closing costs, like all types of things. You have to do what God has put in your hands, right? And he honors that faithfulness. And 3, you have to be desperate. I was desperate. I had no clue how this was going to happen. From getting fired, having a wreck, being told no by 8 million lenders, I had no clue how this was going to happen, but it happened. And if it happens for me, it can happen for you, because God is no respecter of person. My prayer for you is that you just have faith that God is going to do the things that he says he's going to do. And that's the story of my home. And no, I'm not going to do a home tour, so don't ask me. I'm a very private person. The fact that I had to tell this story makes me cringe a little bit on the inside, but here I am doing it. So I will not be doing a home tour. I bought a couch. I got a couch. I got some chairs. I did leave all my furniture in Atlanta. So I'm starting over. So if you want to donate to the furniture fund, do that. But I will not be doing it to my house. Anyway, that's all I have for you. The miracles of God are the miracles of God. And I pray that you believe him and his word. Talk to you later. Bye.